Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the impact of AI. Many people think AI is taking people's jobs, and maybe there's some truth to that. And how does AI impact the job search process? Because many people find that AI is really destroying the hiring process, whether it's people writing their resumes with AI and then companies overlooking it because it looks too generic and there might be mistakes in it because of the AI editing you're using. And then the hiring process, the company itself might be using AI to filter out certain resumes, and that process could be flawed and you might be filtering out some good resumes. So in this video, we're going to cover the dark side of AI and why AI slop is destroying careers in this few clips here. And also we're going to look through paper resumes and how some people are, and some companies are moving back to the old school way of reviewing candidates, looking to invite them for meetings into the office for face-to-face interviews rather than Zoom interviews, people using standard resumes and handing them to different businesses rather than applying online and using AI to prepare their resume, and companies also reducing some use of AI because they find it's inefficient and it's not really resulting in the best candidates finding a job at their company, right? They might be hiring someone incorrectly because AI is kind of skewing the process. So we're going to cover that in a moment. Now, if you are interested, right, and you do see impacts like this onto your own career search strategy, right, you're seeing AI is kind of breaking the hiring process for you, and you're making hundreds of applications, you're dealing with ghost jobs, endless job rejections, and no real results, right, from your interviews, and maybe you're not even getting interviews. My coaching cuts through the chaos and it shows you how to beat AI filters, how to land interviews and get hired fast. I've worked with candidates at top finance firms, private equity firms, top tech firms too, help some of my clients secure salaries over $200,000. So these are the type of things I work with, right? Looking for those unique solutions that are tailor-made to you. So if you're interested in that, schedule a call right now and let's get into the video.
Everybody's jobs will be different. Some jobs will be obsolete, but many jobs will be created. The one thing that we know for certain is that if you're not using AI, you're going to lose your job to somebody who uses AI. That I think we know for certain. There's not a software programmer in the future who's going to be able to hold their own typing by themselves.
And Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has been equally blunt about it.
There are classes of jobs that are going to totally go away. And there will be many classes of jobs that change significantly. And then there'll be the new things in the same way that your job didn't exist some time ago, neither did mine. And in some sense, this has been going on for a long time, and it's still disruptive to individuals, but society has proven quite resilient to this. And then in some other sense, we have no idea how far or fast this could go. And thus, I think we need an unusual degree of humility and openness to considering new solutions that would have seemed way out of the Overton window not too long ago.
So that was just a very brief clip to start with, right? What we're seeing is some experts. You saw Sam Altman there, and I forget the first guy's name, but he's also big in the AI space. What they're talking about is how to use AI effectively, right? And I think in the shorter term, it will be a case of using AI as an assistant, right? Where everyone doing their job will use AI as a tool, like you use a piece of software, like an Excel or a Word in the short term to make things more effective for you. And I think that's kind of interesting to flag because lots of people want to just say AI is going to remove everyone's jobs, but it's often going to be the low effort jobs. I think, for example, when I use certain websites and their customer service little chat, the chat they typically have on an online service, like a website, like a guide, Rufus on Amazon, there's different other little guides, little pop-up chats that you'd have. It could be a salesperson or it could be customer support. I have that for a few different web services I use, and in those cases I think that's when the AI chatbot is much better than a customer service agent, because the AI chatbot, you can train it on all your company's policies, all the help section, and they can give out quite structured answers like ChatGPT to help you, right? So I think jobs like that will become obsolete, where it's talking about here, it says how job seekers and hiring managers alike are craving more human signals to have the right fit. And that's what we're going to continue through this video. It's like AI is not this perfect tool. It is a piece of software at the end of the day, right? So if job seekers and hiring managers are saying we're using AI to either write our resume, help us with our job search, or it's by hiring managers and companies to find the right candidate, and they're saying we're not having the right signal, we're not having the right solutions, the right end goal, we're not pulling out the best candidates. But everyone's been encouraged to use AI as an intermediary, right? It's like men and women using dating apps as an intermediary, right? Rather than meeting people naturally who might have similar backgrounds, similar interests. And it just shows how these things are flawed, right? And I think there is a fair comparison there between using AI in the job search, between whether it's from the job seeker or the company who's looking to hire, and the dating apps. They both have this kind of dysfunctional intermediary role that doesn't work perfectly, even though people like to pretend it does. So let's listen to more clips here.
It was a supplement, a way to brainstorm, automate tedious tasks, or speed up existing workflows. Copywriters used it to beat writer's block. Marketers tested it for email drafts. Developers used it to debug code, and recruiters started experimenting with AI-powered sourcing.
Hi, Julie. My name is Sarah. I'm an AI voice agent that conducts voice screens for Hey Milo. I'm here to help you perform your best. Should we get started?
Yep, let's get started.
First, can you explain how you manage large volumes of incoming calls while ensuring high-quality service?
There was a very real sense that AI could be the ultimate assistant. And if it had stayed there as a tool that made us better at the things that we were already good at, we might not be having this conversation.
So that's a brief clip. We're going to play another clip in a moment. But the whole point is, this is what I mean about in the shorter term, right? And I would say in the next 2 to 5 years, or 2 to 3 years at least. It's hard to predict, but it'll be used as a supplementary tool. And that's when it'll work well to automate those tedious tasks. Some of those things, to be honest, could have already been done with Excel macros, with basic Python coding and things like that. But it's just about speeding up the workflows, right? Less jobs in, and what is interesting is this could actually lead to less jobs in the outsourcing locations. Many people talk about how jobs in the West are moving to India or Mumbai and things like that. But a lot of those tasks that tend to get outsourced there are the kind of jobs that don't need the most like mental processing power and analytical skills that you might have in the West, when you have someone who's highly educated and also understands maybe some more of the office politics. So some of the routine tasks get outsourced to India. But those routine tasks, rather than outsourcing them to India, you might be able to get AI to do it. For example, in the finance industry, there's lots of trade surveillance of checking the thousands of trades that a bank is doing over the course of a day to make sure it's all legit and there's nothing that could be considered insider dealing, market manipulation. And what ends up happening, for your understanding, is there might be 1,000 trades and then there's different layers of reviewing that, like audit check, right? So firstly, there'll be some automated checks. Then the second level would be the India team will review some of those trades. Then there'll be another team to check that. Then it'll come back to London or New York, and then the highly skilled and finance would review those trades for any sense of improper trading. It's like an internal check to make sure no traders are doing any type of dodgy trading. Now, in terms of that, then you could say, oh, there'll be more implementation of AI there to out all the false positives, to only identify the trades that need to be reviewed. And in that case, it won't actually result in more jobs being lost in the West, but more so jobs lost in the outsourcing locations like India specifically.
When executives start looking at AI, they don't just see assistance, they see replacement. Why pay somebody a full salary when you can automate 70% of their work with a tool that costs only $20 a month? And that's when the first cracks started showing. We began seeing AI everywhere initiatives. Tools began rolling out not because they were the best solution, but because leadership felt pressured to innovate or future ready. And worse, the people who were making these calls often had no real understanding of how AI worked or what its limitations were, and they didn't even have the people to implement it or learn how to use it properly. So instead of using it thoughtfully, they rushed it, and all the while, their workforce is looking on skeptically as they attempt to force it to fit into their workflows. Ask any developer how clean the AI code is and how much reworking they need to do to get it to ready state. The arms race mentality only made it worse. Big tech companies started openly competing for dominance in generative AI. Microsoft wanted to own productivity. Google wanted to protect search, and Meta just wanted to stay relevant. And all that competition began trickling down. Suddenly, every startup pitch deck had the word AI in it, and every SaaS tool became an AI-powered solution ending in .ai or .io. And even industries that had nothing to do with technology were rebranding themselves as AI adopters just to keep the investors happy. And most of this implementation felt forced at best, insincere at worst. But the message from the top was clear: adopt AI or get left behind.
Now, this is a good point here. He's talking about, they're thinking about replacing employees with AI. And I think there's some truth to that, right? But the thing is, a lot of cases, these are low quality replacements. And I'll cover this in future videos where there have been some layoffs by major tech companies. I think IBM is the example, but you'll see it in a future video. But then they started hiring more people to help with the AI because the AI wasn't working as intended, right? So this idea that AI is going to replace everyone immediately is just a bit overblown, in my opinion. And then if we keep going through that type of thing, there's a lot of nuance that matters. He mentions how these corporations were talking about innovating and future ready. And the term future ready, which is just another way of saying, company for the future by implementing more AI or other automation and things like that. It's the typical mid-wit, middle management type of way of sounding smart. It's like a corporate buzzword. We need to be future ready. We need blue sky thinking, right? Synergies, that type of wording. So I think, AI is going to have some impact in the workplace, but I think, one of those things where in the short term, it's overblown, and in the long term, it's maybe underestimated. And I think, think about these companies who are rushing. What are they rushing for? What reason to quickly implement AI? Is it just cost savings? Is it just to keep senior management happy? And my opinion is when you have a buzzword like AI or blockchain in the past, other things that have come up, the dot-com bubble, it's just like there's a rush to be on that new hype, not just for investors, but also for management, because they want to appeal to senior management, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, doing this brand new AI thing, it's just a buzzword to throw around, right? I think it reminds me of all the other hypes that have come and gone, right? You have the AI hype, before you had metaverse hype. Remember metaverse? Under that goal, you don't really hear about that. Then there's blockchain hype before that, DEI, that's been removed. Metaverse itself has kind of really talking about investing in it. Past, you've had of hype around big data, and of course people do have big data and they use big data, like large volumes of data, to do analysis, but it's just not as big a hype as it was in the past. Same thing with cloud computing, Six Sigma for like management skills. I'm not saying these things aren't used right now, because they are, but it's just not as big as a hype as people talk about, right? And then of course, like I say before, you have the dot-com bubble. You have a lot of things even before that, back in the 90s, about re-engineering, restructuring, about changing things work, and a lot of these things were overblown. Now we're going to come back to more clips from this video. In the meantime, I just want to go back to this article, right, which is talking about the hiring process is going back to the old school way of doing things, where they're actually thinking, okay, how can we most of the new technology, but also think about what's worked well in the past. This person says, I literally just walked into a store and handed them a resume for them even to take a look at me. It just so happened the manager was in. I got a call a week later to apply formally, right? While this paper resume may have been a particular retro outlier in a sea of job applicants, a bit creative is needed when businesses are hiring at a very low rate compared to the last decade. There's AI and exhaustion of both sides on the hiring table. And what this is just a brief example of someone who was applying to a lot of jobs, not getting anywhere. And what he did was start visiting local shops. And I know it's easier said than done, and maybe for certain jobs it might work well. But for example, if you're looking for sales roles as a car salesman, of course it's good to apply online. But if you could visit some of those sales shops, then the car dealerships, that might be a good, for getting your name in front of people who matter, and maybe being able to represent yourself well, particularly in a sales type of job where they want to judge you on your character rather than some technical skills on a resume. And meeting them in person can be a great thing. Then there's a quote here, on the flip side, hiring managers are flooded with applications, many of them using AI to make them seem like the perfect fit. Think paper resumes, walk-in applicants, and flying folks out to make sure they're the real deal, right? So what ends up happening is AI was not yielding the best candidates for some of these managers. They were seeing lots of resumes that just clearly looked like they were AI slop, right? Like quality AI resumes. And this is why when I work with my clients, by the way, I write their resumes for themselves, right? I professionally write their resumes, because it has to look unique and individual to you. You have to tell a particular story. And I know loads of people just want to depend on AI, and you think AI would make things better, but there is a reason why there's a lot of AI slop. And even this video that I'm reacting to is talking about AI slop destroying careers. And the point is that people are getting lazy and not using AI as a tool to improve themselves. It's just like, oh, I'll just get AI to do it. I'll just ask AI to do it. And this is the culture we live in, right? It's not really about using a tool like AI or a smartphone to improve your quality of life. People are just like lazy. I'll just use that. It reminds me of some of those tech, wear a ring, like an Aura ring, a Halo ring, to measure their sleep. And it's like, yeah, you can use that, but it's like, do you not have like enough basic human skills and instincts about yourself, or intuition about yourself, about when you have a good night's sleep and when you don't, and what little factors you can measure into that, like nice lighting around the evening, like that. You can look out for different things. You don't need technology to do all the thinking for you, but that's what many people are doing. And you can really stand out by doing things like this guy did, which would be walking in to certain businesses. It doesn't work for everything, not going to work for a big tech company, most likely, or a big finance bank, right? But in other instances, it can work quite well. And it mentions just here, before we go back to another clip, think about paper resumes, right? Walk-in applicants and flying folks out to make sure they're the real deal. And I covered in a previous video, actually, there's a Chinese American guy who was interviewing after his internship for tech companies. And a lot of them were flying him out to interview him in person after doing a few interviews through Zoom. And the whole point is people really do want to get a good sense of you, who you are as a person. So being too dependent on AI, even if you know AI to help you with a job interview you're doing online, you won't be able to hide behind AI all the time as like a helpful tool. The same way companies can't hide behind using AI as a candidate filtering tool. They have to eventually use some people skills to determine if someone's right for the job, rather than just having a good resume.
AI slop is what happens when this technology is used poorly, when it's deployed without expertise, without oversight, or without any real human input beyond click to generate. It's blog posts that sound the same, no matter which company wrote them. It's marketing emails full of buzzwords and zero substance. It's stock images that look all vaguely similar to one another. It's social media posts and comments that summarize somebody else's content and end with a motivational cliche. It's AI-generated sales and training videos that are delivered by a robotic voice, or that one-way interview with your robotic AI avatar recruiter.
These vertical bar plotties. I plot these bar plotties to put these vertical bar plotties.
And hey, who can blame them? We've all experimented with these things, myself included. But the problem is that this content isn't just low quality, it's literally everywhere. And when everybody's using the same AI tools trained on the same data, we all start to produce the same outputs. And this is the problem with most corporate innovation that we've been forced to use. Now, if you want a real world parallel, think back to the dot-com bubble. In the late 90s, every company and every entrepreneur was rushing to get a website. It didn't matter if you had a real business model or not. As long as you threw a .com on your name, investors were just throwing money at you. But we all know how that ended. Right now, the AI space looks eerily similar. Graphic design firms leveraging cheap AI tools to produce generic and often flawed results. AI resume builders spitting out generic templates without understanding the job market. AI content farms that flood the internet with garbage blog posts just to hit SEO quotas. And automated plugins for nearly every software package that are flooding the market when the solution isn't needed or asked for. And because so many of these companies are chasing quick money and riding the trends, rather than building sustainable products with real knowledge, the quality is abysmal. Because they're not built on deep expertise. They're built on good enough outputs from a model they didn't even create by teams with no real expertise in the problems they're trying to solve with technology.
And this is kind of what he's saying, right? If people are just, everyone's using the same AI, it's generating the same type of answers. And we're going to come into a specific example where this article here, where it's going to talk about how people are applying for a job, and what ends up happening is many people are using AI to help them with their job interview answers or doing certain case studies. And then if everyone's having the same exact answer, because they're all cheating from the same AI tool, right? So we're going to go through a few examples here, but the whole point first is, doing a lot of the job interview process, not just your resume, but job interviews, and first few weeks working there, or months when you might be under probation specifically, you want to show some personality and character, that you're someone who can actually think for themselves, right? You're not just someone who's a generic average person with no soul, right? You're not an NPC. You have some depth of character and soul. And I think you see this not just in the work environment, but also with content and people's takes, where you can sense when someone writes something via AI on different email marketing campaigns and things like that, right? And I think what's going to make people stand out from others, it depends on the context, because of course you can use AI to do a lot, but I think when it involves some creativity and originality, it's all going to be about depth of character, having soul, original thought, having deep expertise, right? Having a long-term vision and really becoming specialized in your field. And then you can combine that with some AI that can help you with that, right? So AI will be helpful over time. If you give the same AI tool to someone who's quite intelligent and someone who's dumb, the person who's intelligent is going to get better results out of that AI, the same with any piece of software compared to an idiot. Now, this guy goes, this manager, Devon, was setting out to hire for a new role at his advertising agency. He asked candidates to answer 2 questions in their cover letter. What were your thoughts on AI in the creative industry? And what is your favorite ads on social media? Then he got many people who responded to this on their cover letter with generic AI answers. And he could tell that because he got 20 responses from people applying to this job with the same AI generated answers, because AI was the same answers to these case study questions, right? Like, who applied for this advertising role, they had an answer to this question in their cover letter that they like campaigns like Nike or Coca-Cola or Duolingo's TikTok account, right? The whole point is that AI was spitting out the same answer to this question, and people just kept posting that, right? So this kind of shows like what we're seeing here, where even AI is generating the same type of phrasing, right? We have phenomenal PR teams, right, in these example companies of Nike and Coca-Cola and Duolingo and things like that. The whole point is you have to be careful about that too, because I see that too, where people are not thinking for themselves. The same way people might read a few news stories and they form their opinion of that, they'd get AI to give them an answer and that's the answer. They never think about that answer, because you have to understand, I'm sure you all use AI, ChatGPT or otherwise, and ChatGPT or all of the AI, they have confirmation bias, which means if you have certain perspectives, it's going to respond with it positively or agree with you. If you ask for generic questions, you're going to get generic answers. So what you ended up happening is like 20 people apply this job, all taking the questions they got from the job application, which says, what is your favorite ads on social media? And they all spit out like 20 answers, the same 20 different people about Nike and Coca-Cola, rather than thinking to themselves, what is some favorite ads on social media accounts? Now, we all use social media. I could think about, and I don't even work in the advertising field, right? I can think about so many Twitter accounts that some of these companies have that post very funny responses to current events, right? They try to avoid the political stuff. I think Wendy's, like a fast food, was known for like posting some funny little memes on their Twitter account, funny jokes. That's how I would answer that without going too much into politics, just talking a bit about the kind of engaging in marketing. And like I say, people aren't going to think about this because they're just like, oh, I'll just ask AI, I don't have a brain of my own. That's what you see a lot of the time. Now, this professor at university says AI has made hiring a cat and mouse game between candidates and employers. They're both using technology to suss each other out, right? Part of that might be seen in the spray and pray approach, where applications use bots to mass apply for jobs, right? A spray and pray, I mean, my understanding of pray was slightly different, but if you're talking about spray and pray here, the whole point is he's saying, cat and mouse, chasing the best candidates. Candidates are kind of not being able to be well matched with some of those applications because AI is not filtering them correctly. And then he's talking about how spray and pray approach is where applicants are applying for massive amount of jobs, like over 100 jobs, bots, right? Or I know people who use assistants, like real life assistants, do job applications or automate them in some way, and people aren't thinking carefully about between what they're applying for. And I understand if you're in a desperate situation, you desperately need to search for jobs, you're applying for anything and everything, but sometimes it requires a lot more human element rather than just use an automated bot to easy apply on LinkedIn for every single job in my area. And it's the same thing from the employer's end, right? They're using AI to sift through candidates. They have virtual agents to step in to interview prospective new hires in the first round. It's not quite working as well as it should, right? And I think everyone's picking up on that. Not just people who watch my channel who might be searching for a job, but also companies are like, oh, well, maybe this isn't working as we intended.
For executives, the math is simple. If AI can do it faster, cheaper, and without PTO or healthcare costs, why wouldn't they? The problem is, and I don't think enough executives have thought this through, is when companies replace people with AI too quickly, they don't just lose the headcount. They lose judgment, creativity, and institutional knowledge. they also open themselves up to massive quality problems. I've seen businesses adopt AI generated content without realizing it was factually wrong, or worse, it was biased in a way that could cause potential legal trouble. And the same thing is happening on social media. LinkedIn and X are flooded with AI generated posts from people who've never published anything before, nor do they have the competency to even write clearly. And now they're thought leaders pumping out daily content that all sounds the same, modeled off of their favorite creators. And listen, I'm all for people having a voice on these platforms, but not when it's done in an insincere or inauthentic way. Because essentially it's creating a feedback loop of recycled, shallow ideas, which ironically makes it harder to stand out if you actually have something valuable to say. I myself have been accused of plagiarizing my own content.
So that's a good example, right? AI, can make cheaper, which is what some major corporations might need to do, or management are going to think, okay, how do I board of directors? Let's just replace these 3 teams with AI, and then a bunch of problems will kick off, and then other teams will have to pick up that, and then over time they're going to have to rehire some of the people that they fired because the AI isn't working exactly as intended, right? And I think when you remove some of those human flaws, you also remove good things: expertise, creative thinking, quality, control, things like that. There's not a lot of original thought, and that's what's going to separate the winners and the losers. People who have that detailed expertise, people who are focused on mastering their craft and using AI as a tool rather than a crutch. Now, the third and final point I wanted to cover here was about what is going on in the workplace, right, in terms of this job search. Here it says that escalation, it's harder for employers to understand where the quality candidates are because they're using AI for some of the filtering tools. So it's also hard for employees, right, workers, to figure out which firm they like and which would be a best fit for their role, right? This director of undergrad career service at University of Iowa says employers want what she calls multiple touch points. They want to see candidates that show up to job interviews, introduce themselves, reintroduce themselves, different people at the they're interviewing at, do multiple interviews, look for maybe job referrals, look for informational interviews showing technical skills and soft skills at the job interview, going to career recruitment events, going to speak out to others, stand out by reintroducing yourself to recruiters, essentially doing a lot of human interaction, whether it's recruiting events, whether it's multiple interviews, networking in your industry. That's how you really stand out. Now it's talking about here it's saying that for a second interview, they gave a test to the candidates on a computer disconnected from the internet. Now that takes out the aspect of using AI to kind of cheat or go and get answers. Now, I've done several case study interviews at private equity firms, hedge funds, and even certain other big 4, right? The Deloitte, KPMG, Ernst & Young, PwC. I've interviewed all of them. And about 3 of them, I've done some sort of case study. And typically it could be a computer without the internet or some kind of software where you can't access the internet unless it's certain websites that'll help with the task without cheating. And the thing is, he's mentioned here that they're testing people by blocking out AI and giving them some specific case studies to resolve. So just always take that into account. And this is what I mean. The companies know people are relying too much on AI. So how can they perform without AI? They're going to test you on that. So don't become too dependent on it. Here it says, hiring managers want referrals. When you have somebody that's willing to put their personal name behind you, so this will give you a higher success rate in terms of your job search. So one way I help doing this is with my clients. One thing I always say is good when you're at a company to leave on good terms, but before you leave, be on good terms with senior people on LinkedIn at the company so they can give you referrals or endorsements, recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, because that will help you stand out. Like maybe a managing director at your company, 2 or 3 of them leave a positive review about your work output on your LinkedIn, and then you go move and do your job search. That will really help you because it shows a good referral there, right? That you've been good at doing your role. There's many people who are willing to put their personal name behind your professional brand, that you're going to be good at working at another company. And again, that's a human element. That has nothing to do with AI, right? You can't really use AI to do that. You have to be good at having soft skills and being able to work with senior people quite well. And then over here it says, while it's easier to have more in-person interaction in terms of filtering out for candidates, for good people to work for, good companies who are looking to hire good candidates, at the big companies, it might make it a bit more difficult, right? And the whole point I'm trying to say here is many workers are going to realize not only is the work environment better at smaller companies, as I've covered in some of my recent videos, because they're going to offer more remote work, so you can work from home, you don't have to be in the office all day, because these companies, to save costs on their commercial real estate, and also to attract some high workers from some of the big companies. Now, a lot of the big companies, big tech, big finance companies, they want employees to be in the office like 5 days a week, or at least like 4 days a week. And many of those people, they really do want to work from home. So when they work for a smaller company, they're going to prefer to work for them because they're going to be able to work from home. And also these smaller companies are going to have a bit more human element to that interview process, because big companies like a Goldman Sachs or a Google, they're going to have to be more dependent on the automated AI checks to filter out for job applicants, right? But for smaller companies, it's going to be word of mouth, it's going to be referrals, it's going to be like, oh, what do they feel about you in person? And less people are going to be applying for some of those smaller companies. So that's when you can really escape that kind of AI control system in terms of being able to use your people skills and, you know, coming across person, maybe visiting some of those smaller companies in your locality to present yourself in a good way when they're looking to hire, rather than just having to go through like an AI filtering for a big company that might automatically exclude you just because AI is not working as intended. So that brings me back to my original point, right? So there's lots of people using AI, they're not using it correctly. AI's kind of make the a lot more broken from both ends, not just the job seekers end, but also companies who are looking to hire, making hundreds of applications, dealing with endless rejections and no results. I try to focus on the best roles for my clients to find the right next step for them in their career, so they can cut through all the chaos and beat a lot of these AI filters and land interviews and get hired fast to take the next step in your career without being held back with all this kind of gray area of nonsense, of AI, of other issues that might be hindering your job search, right? So schedule a call with me now so you can get ahead of a economy that's just going to get worse in 2026. Hopefully you can get started soon and I can help you with your career. So link in description if you want to speak with me. Let me know in the comments how you think about AI and its impact on the job hiring process. Is it impacting you? 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.